Are we ready for an Adam Thielen reunion with the Minnesota Vikings?
So you're telling me there's a chance?
That is the latest discussion. That is the latest enthusiasm, talking point, excitement. This take is presented by Hochland Farm. Contact Hochland Farm at 952-491-1541 and get the best rotationally grazed 100% grass-fed. Tell Hochland Farm you heard about them on the Minnesota Tim podcast and get 20% off your first order by mentioning the Minnesota Tim podcast. Get the best sirloin steak, T-bone steak, chuck roast, beef, and more. I'm telling you, we smoked some T-bone steaks on our Traeger the other day, which we just bought, and it tasted absolutely incredible. Contact Hochland Farm today and get the mouth-watering beef in your freezers today. Remember to mention 20% off by mentioning the Minnesota Tim podcast. Wait 1 second. Remember to mention the Minnesota Tim podcast and get 20% off. Okay. Adam Thielen is a wide receiver for the Carolina Panthers. He's spent a majority of his career with the Minnesota Vikings. And last year, he said that he signed with the Carolina Panthers with Bryce Young as the quarterback, with their head coach situation the way it was, whoever it even was. I can't even remember. He got fired. Is that Matt Rule? No, I don't think so. He was a couple of years ago, wasn't he? Anyway, it doesn't matter. Head coach got fired. Complete disaster of a situation. But he signed there to win a Super Bowl. That's why he signed with the Carolina Panthers. It wasn't about the money. It wasn't about the guaranteed dollars. It was to win a Super Bowl. Anyways, he was their greatest wide receiver last year. Had over 1,000 yards, barely, at like 1,100 yards. Had some touchdowns. He was the only somewhat legitimate weapon by Bryce Young, so he got all the balls. And when their team is down big, quite often, you throw the ball a lot. So that is the perfect recipe for Adam Thielen to put up a 1,000-yard season. And then you look at Justin Jefferson type seasons, and he's going for like 2,000 yards. So it's like doubling what Adam Thielen did last year for the Carolina Panthers. So just trying to give some context behind the numbers. And the latest rumor is that Adam Thielen could be reuniting with the Minnesota Vikings. And this is an exciting rumor because he's from Minnesota, if you didn't know that. Did you know he went to Detroit Lakes or he's from Detroit Lakes and he played at Mankato State Division II and then signed with the Minnesota Vikings special teams and then worked his way up from there. He is an incredible story. But this is one of those situations where the incredible story is blocking out the likelihood or the realisticness of Adam Thielen joining the Minnesota Vikings. And the reason why I say that is because it isn't going to happen now. Maybe next year it will. Maybe he'll close out his career on a one-year deal, not a one-day deal with the Minnesota Vikings. He'll do a one-day deal, but will he do a one-year deal before he does the one-day deal? Maybe. We'll see. Adam Thielen is not joining the Minnesota Vikings this year because if the Carolina Panthers cut him, and they did gain wide receivers this year, he's not the only guy on their roster that can catch the ball anymore. They got some guys. But if the Carolina Panthers cut Adam Thielen, then they will just be cutting him and not saving much money at all. He's due $8 million. If they cut him, they'll save $1 million. It's like you're going to take on $8 million in dead cap space so he can reunite with his former team? It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. It's not like he's being paid $2 to $3 million, and if you cut him, you're not really losing that much. You would take on a dead cap hit of $8 million for a guy who was your best wide receiver last year and probably going to be your most consistent wide receiver this season. So it makes absolutely no sense if you're the Carolina Panthers. It does make sense if you're the Minnesota Vikings, because we don't know what's going to happen with Jordan Addison. Probably nothing, because the Minnesota Vikings need him on the roster. He might get a little slap on the wrist, maybe a game or two, but not much. But if he does get something, then it'd be nice to have Adam Thielen step in. And the discussion continues to revolve around wide receiver 3. Is it Jalen Naylor? Are they going to bring in Hunter Renfrow? Is Brandon Powell going to take on the wide receiver 3 position? It would be nice for the Minnesota Vikings to bring in a guy like Adam Thielen and let him sit as that wide receiver 3, the KJ Osborne, the guy that can catch the ball on third downs, the guy that can come through for you when you need you on a third down play when Justin Jefferson is being triple teamed and Jordan Addison is also being guarded closely. It'd be nice to have a guy like that, especially with TJ Hockenson out for at least the first 4 to 6 weeks of the NFL season. Apparently, he's on a quicker recovery. He's ahead of schedule. So that's a good thing. Adam Thielen joining the Minnesota Vikings. The likelihood, big fat 0% chance. It's not happening. Thank you for watching this episode. Hit that subscribe button right there if you're watching on YouTube. And thank you for listening wherever you are listening. Remember to contact Hoagland Farm and get 20% off your first order by mentioning the Minnesota Tim Podcast. 952-491-1541.